Hi, this is Eric Durek, and welcome to this edition of Medhealthfit, the local television show that integrates wellness and healthcare. This is an interesting show because I'm holding a prop. It's a bottle of water. And most people who are involved in the health profession know that water is the essence of life. Every chemical reaction in the body needs water in order to be processed. And we all need to drink water in terms of maintaining just general physical health every day. Well, the next prop I'm holding up is a box of toothpaste. And ever since we were young, our doctors and our dentists told us that you need to brush your teeth regularly in order to maintain good health. And I certainly subscribe to that. But today's topic is fluoride. And fluoride is in many of the toothpastes that people use to brush their teeth. And what most people don't understand about fluoride is where it comes from and what it's good for, and should it actually be in our toothpaste and other things that we eat and drink during the course of the day. So the topic of today's talk, which I have here on my educational tool right here, is called Fluoride Facts. And it really is the consumer's guide to understanding fluoride and how it can be used for your health. Now, let's kind of start from the basics here. What is fluoride? And it actually comes from the element fluorine. And based on our high school and college chemistry, we know that fluorine is part of the periodic table, and it's actually a halogen gas, which means that at room temperature, it's something that you would breathe in as a gas. And when it's bound to other metals, it actually can create a salt, like sodium chloride, sodium bromide, sodium fluoride, etc. So all of these types of chemicals are bound because fluoride as a molecule is very reactive. It's almost like the antioxidant issues that you hear about when you are listening on the television set. And so when it binds to a molecule, that molecule becomes stronger. And it may disrupt other types of molecules in the body. So fluorine is actually in quite a few products. And as we go through our lecture today, we'll take a look at it. Its use in the 1930s was from uranium enrichment. It was actually used in the Manhattan Project. And it's also used in different types of chemicals that we have today, like Lipitor, which is for blood fats, and Prozac. But it really doesn't have any metabolic role. It doesn't help with weight loss. It doesn't help with sleep patterns, etc. Fluoride, for most people in law enforcement, know that it's the main ingredient of a drug called Rohypnol, which is called Roofies, which is the date rape drug. It's also an atomic disruptor. I've talked about this before. So when it binds to other molecules, it actually disrupts other chemicals in the body. When you take this chemical internally, it displaces iodine, which is essential to human health. Fluoride ions contact with the teeth, and it's long been thought that it limits cavities by turning the teeth into this chemical called hydroxyapatite, which is a less soluble fluoroapatite. So the more up-to-date studies that have been published in the last few years show that there really isn't any difference in dental caries between teeth with enamel fluoridated to any specific degree. So low levels of fluoride, which does occur naturally in some water supplies, may be important for absorption, but it only works by direct topical contact. And any of you who have been to your doctor, your dentist, know that at the end of the cleaning, they'll usually rub with their little device, they'll usually rub some fluoride right directly on the top part of the teeth, and they'll let it soak in for a little bit. Fluoride ions that are swallowed do not have any protection for the teeth. So in about 30% of water supplies for communities, they've actually fluoridated their water. So what I'm telling you today is that the fluoride that some communities drink, and that it is in a lot of soft drinks, etc., doesn't really have any protective benefits for the teeth at all. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of fluoridation, which might surprise you. And on our slide right here, I'm going to introduce you to a gentleman named Edward Bernays. He was an advertising genius. Edward Bernays in America was the first madman, for those of you who follow the television show. He wrote a book in 1930s called Propaganda, The Public and the Mind of the Making. And basically it was his job as an advertising guy to change public perception. So he was also the nephew of Sigmund Freud. So as a young boy, he had the opportunity to read an awful lot about clinical psychology from his uncle's work. He was very interested, and he applied that area of psychology to the masses. In other words, how could you change perception of people by telling them something, showing them something, etc. And he really was the first marketing genius in the United States. He actually had the word fluoridation put into dictionaries and encyclopedias and define it as the protection of a patient's teeth by the use of this mineral. It worked like a charm because after about 10 years of his work in the area of advertising, most parents, most doctors, and most dentists accepted the fact that fluoride was a natural part of the dental process, the cleaning process, the protection of the teeth over the lifetime. Well, as we can see by this warning label for Rat-Tack, which is actually a rat poison, the main ingredient of this toxin is fluoride. And I'll repeat this again, I'll probably say it a few times during our show today, that fluoride is actually a neurotoxin. And if you look at sodium fluoride and the warnings that they give, not just on the toothpaste, but on all other uses of sodium fluoride, they say that it is a danger to the nervous system. If you add it to water, it may actually be considered over time a neurotoxin. So one of the questions I'm going to talk about with our audience here today is, why are we putting this in water supplies across the United States? Very interesting question. Now, I will preface this by saying that Santa Barbara does not fluoridate their water. As a matter of fact, most industrial countries in the United States do not fluoridate their water supply. The United States has about 30 to 40%, but Europe, for instance, has about 97% fluoride-free water. Most of the minerals that occur in the water are naturally occurring. Last year, the citizens of Portland, Oregon fought very hard to get fluoride out of their water supply. They had a project called cleanwaterportland.org, and they worked very hard at defeating the bill which would have added fluoride to their water supply. And it's one of the first large municipalities in the United States that has actually done this. So what's the second fact about fluoride? Most countries who do not fluoridate have less tooth decay, or about the same amount of tooth decay as countries that do fluoridate. So if we look at the United States and all of the municipalities that use fluoride, they don't have any less incidence of tooth decay than people in Europe or in municipalities in the US that don't use fluoride. So the decline in tooth decay in the US has really been attributed to fluoridated water, but it may be attributed to brushing habits or the types of food people eat, et cetera, et cetera. So we're gonna look into this issue in terms of the cause and effect of fluoridating water in actually improving someone's health. Well, fluoride fact number 3 is the fluoride may affect many tissues in your body besides your teeth, especially if you're drinking it. So many assume that consuming fluoride is only an issue that involves dental health. However, recent 500-page scientific review states that fluoride, which is an endocrine disruptor, can affect your bones, can affect your brain, your thyroid gland, your pineal gland, even your blood sugar levels. So we may even see that an excessive amount of fluoridation may have an impact on diabetes control. So let's look at the effects of fluoride on the brain. There have been about 34 studies on humans and about 100 animal studies that have looked at fluoride and brain damage with MRIs or brain dissection in animals. And one of these issues is lower IQ in children. Studies have shown that fluoride toxicity can lead to a wide variety of healthcare issues that involve the brain and the IQ. So let's look at a few of these things. Thyroid disease, you have a lower thyroid function. There may be an increase in genetic damage and cell death due to fluoride. It can disrupt the synthesis of collagen, which may actually increase arthritis and bone cancer and other types of tumor rates. It may actually have an effect on hyperactivity or lethargia, causing dementia or a disrupted immune system. And lastly, we may actually see things like muscle disorders, bone fractures, or the inhibition of the formation of certain types of antibodies. So fluoride is having issues and problems with many areas and many systems in the body. It's not just about bone health, all right? The fluoridation of water supplies is not a natural process in most communities. Now, if you went up into higher areas, the Colorado Rockies, Utah, Montana, where we have higher levels, certain streams, certain water supplies, certain aqueducts do have low levels of naturally occurring fluorine. But most water supplies are done in an unnatural process. Fluoride is added to most water supplies by a process called hydrofluoric, let me repeat this again, hydrofluoric acid, which is basically a capture mechanism of air pollution control devices from the phosphate fertilizer industry. So as a local group reported here in Southern California a few years ago, and I'm going to caption this on the screen, the fluoride acid is most contaminated chemical added to public water supplies, and it may impose additional risks to those presented by natural fluorides. These risks include possible cancer, a hazard from the acids of the elevated arsenic content, and possible neurotoxic hazards from the acid's ability under some conditions to increase the erosion of lead from old pipes. So fluoride, if we look at it from the standpoint of if it's a toxin, what is it doing in the water supply in the first place? And if it's toxic, what tissues may it have the most effect on? So when people say that, well, it is a naturally occurring element, I say, well, not at the levels that we find in drinking water, because it's a byproduct of industry. And it has been for many, many years. So EPA has looked at this and they said, well, we don't consider this to be much of a toxin. However, 40% of teenagers right now who have been using fluoride for a long period of time show visible signs of fluoride overexposure. Well, what does that mean? Let's look on the screen here and say that 40% have dental fluorosis, which is a condition that refers to changes in the tooth enamel that are caused by long-term ingestion of fluoride. And in some cases, these rates are as high as 70 to 80%. Some children are suffering from advanced forms of fluorosis at a very young age. So it's a risk-benefit here. We're looking at, are we protecting certain amounts of enamel? But at certain levels of fluoridation, we actually see the reverse happening, that we have this dental fluorosis, which is actually causing problems with the teeth. And it's the same type of thing that doctors and dentists are saying, well, if you use fluoride, it should protect the teeth. Well, it's likely that fluoride may be a sign that children are receiving large amounts of this from multiple sources, because it's not just in your general water supply from your tap. You have fluoride in the following areas. You have it in toothpaste, you have it in processed beverages like sodas and juices, you have it in teas, you have it in nonstick pans, and you have it in some fluoridated drugs. So some drugs will actually use fluoride to help preserve the drug or keep it in a certain texture or chemical composition for a long period of time. So not only do we have to address the whole issue of water supply, but we have to address things like, do we actually need to have fluoride in elements such as toothpaste? Because what most people don't know, that there is a warning on all toothpaste labels that says that if you ingest this substance, you should actually call the Poison Control Center, even at small amounts. So it begs the question, if you are using something in your mouth they're supposed to protect your teeth, and you're ingesting this substance, is this serious enough that you need to call the Poison Control Center? I find it very interesting. It's also important to realize that dental fluorosis is not just cosmetic. It's not just that, well, I'm going to have a blackening of the teeth or browning of the teeth. It also is an indication of the rest of your body, because what most people don't know is that your teeth are actually bones. Most of your internal bones don't have enamel on them, but it's the same type of process. And if you're having a destruction of the teeth, chances are you're having the same level of destruction or the same types of processes going on with your internal bones as well. And it may be that they're breaking down faster than they can build up because of the high amounts of fluoride in the system. Well, let's look at number 6 of our fluoride facts. For infants, fluoridated water provides no benefits to them, only risks. So infants who consume baby formulas, which are fluoridated usually with tap water to a certain amount, they may actually have spikes of fluoride in their body and their teeth. And if they're actually exposed to this, as an infant, and there really is no advantage to their developing teeth at this time. So they may have plenty of harmful effects, such as brain and other tissues. But when children are developing, we all know that we have baby teeth, and those teeth are going to come out at some time, and they're going to give way to our adult teeth. So giving an infant a baby formula or a juice or a soft drink or even tap water that is fluoridated may actually pose more risks for them than it would ever do in terms of protecting the teeth. So they're more likely to develop dental fluorosis, but also reduced IQ scores. And these IQ scores of these children, they're significantly lower than children who live in low fluoridation areas. So a number of prominent dental researchers have now advised that parents should not add any fluoridation to baby formulas at all. So I find this interesting that we have a segment of the population who believes that you have to fluoridate in order to protect the teeth, when it's actually a much bigger picture than that. And now we're looking at it from the standpoint of infants and toddlers and what are the health risks for them, because this may be something that they take with them their entire lives. So let's look at number 7. Fluoride supplements have never been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. As a matter of fact, the quote here is, with fluoridation, we're adding it to the water, which is basically a prescription dose of a medication which has never been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. So the FAN, which is the nonprofit group that's looking at fluoridation across the United States, basically says that if you're adding fluoride to water supply, you're medicating a population. Is that good? Well, any other time that you medicate a person, they first have to have informed consent, but they also have to understand, the risks and benefits and the dosage of the medicine that they're receiving. And FAN basically says to the American public, you don't know either one of these. You don't know what the risks are over time because no one's telling you, and you really don't know what dose you need because the more water you drink, the more fluoride that you're getting. All right, number 8, fluoride is the only medicine that's purposefully added to public water supplies. So in other words, most municipalities vote on the fact that they get the fluoride in the water. Now, while proponents claim that this isn't any different than adding vitamin D to milk or to cereals, fluoride is not an essential nutrient. You don't need to have vitamin D fluoride for basic health, like your fat-soluble and your water-soluble vitamins. There are plenty of vitamins and minerals that are added to fortify foods. We know that they have those in breakfast cereals, and we know that vitamin D is added to milk. Water fluoridation is a form of mass medication that does not even give a person the right to understand informed consent. I've just mentioned this earlier because you don't know how much you're getting, you don't know what the dosage is. Number 9, swallowing fluoride provides little benefit to the teeth. Again, this is a topical. The Centers for Disease Control have said that when you want to add fluoride to have any protection to the teeth, you want to add it topically. So adding it to the system, the body system, adds no benefit whatsoever to the teeth. And interestingly enough, African American and Mexican American children have significantly higher rates of dental fluorosis, and many low-income communities also have very bad oral health crises, despite the fact that these areas have been fluoridated for decades. So again, FAN says here, and I quote, "The simple fact is that poor populations need dental care. They don't need fluoridated chemicals in their water supply. The millions of dollars that we spend each year promoting fluoridation would be better spent advocating policies that provide real dental care." So in short, fluoridation provides good PR for the Dental Association, but it's not very good medicine because it's supposedly meant to serve people, and it really is not doing that. So we can look at fluoride as something that just is added sort of as a byproduct, and maybe we'll add it to poor communities because it's good PR. But over decades in time, we haven't really seen that much of a benefit in terms of the care of children's teeth. Fluoride impacts far more than our teeth. It may be implicated in hypothyroidism and some of the other diseases that I spoke of earlier. Fluoride should be considered a drug because of its toxicity. And in the environmental health world, when you want to look at the toxicity of a drug, you look at what used to be called the MSDS, the Materials Safety Data Sheet. And most people don't know that in America today, we have over 800,000 chemicals that are used in industry. One of those is fluoride, fluorine. The MSDS is now called the SDS because they've had some changes in environmental health. But basically, when a person is exposed to an environmental toxin, let's say that you're exposed to bleach in your kitchen, or you're exposed to bleach on the job, there's an MSDS that tells you what the exposure will do to you and what you need to do to the person. If they ingest it, do you need to induce vomiting? Do you need to call 911? What are the situations? So fluoride actually has its own MSDS. It has safety data. It is, and I'm going to quote here on our slide, it's hazardous in case of skin contact, which means it's an irritant. If it's an ion contact, it may actually be corrosive. And if it's ingested or inhaled, it has significant hazard of skin contact, and overexposure can actually result in death. So on the MSDS, it looks at carcinogenic effects. It's a class A4, which is not classified for human or animal by the classification committee. It has a tetragenic effect as effects on baby. That data is not available. But it actually has mutagenic effects. So it may affect some of our somatic cells. It may be toxic to kidneys, lungs, nervous system, heart, gastrointestinal tract, cardiovascular system, bones, and teeth. And repeated exposure to the substance can produce target organ damage. So when we look at things from an environmental aspect, we look at the MSDS because there are thousands of them that relate to toxic substances in our world. And what most people don't know is that fluoride itself has its own MSDS, and we need to basically look at that as the foundation of the fact that it's a toxic substance and should be treated as such. Well, where else do we find fluoride? Let's look here on soft drinks. We have most brands of toothpaste have fluoride. It's in bottled water. It's in processed cereals. It's in juices, mostly white grape juice. It's in the pesticide cryolite, which is found on most non-organic vegetables. It's in processed lunch meats like fish sticks and deboned chicken, and it's in many teas. China has very high levels of skeletal fluorosis and arthritis because they drink lots of tea, and those tea bags are actually, use fluoride. Okay. So lastly, where do we find the most fluoride? In toothpaste, and most toothpaste carry this warning. Keep out of the reach of children under 6 years of age. If you swallow more than is used for brushing, get medical help or contact the Poison Control Center right away. I think that's a pretty telling sign in terms of something that you are ingesting and the actual benefit from it, whereas your own toothpaste tube, your own toothpaste container actually contains a poison control warning on it, which I would venture that most people have not read. So how do we reduce or eliminate the amount of fluoride in our system? Well, there's no fluoride in the water supply here in Santa Barbara, and that's a good thing. All right? Use toothpaste brands that don't have fluoride in them. I use Tom's of Maine. I use a specific brand of toothpaste that does not have fluoride in it. Limit the use of bottled waters. Use organic juices or those who have less fluoride, maybe some that have filtered water. Limit processed foods. Many of them, cookies, crackers, etc., are processed with fluoridated water. And talk to your dentist about the hazards of using fluoride, even in the dentist office. I think it's very important that you may or may not want it applied to your teeth. So avoid fruits that are sprayed, vegetables, soy milk, and grape juice. These seem to have the highest amounts of fluoride in them. Check magnesium levels, because that's a good indicator of fluoride. Magnesium usually inhibits the absorption of fluoride into the system. Melatonin production, it's essential for the pineal gland, so you want to make sure that your melatonin levels are very good. Daily exercise, helpful diet, using of iodine supplements because they have a tendency to counterbalance sodium fluoride. And lastly, the supplement lecithin, which helps excrete fluoride from the body. So let's look at here, this slide, 7 ways to protect yourself against fluoride toxicity. High levels of vitamin C, intake of iodine, infrared saunas, fulvic acid, which you can get at the health food stores, coffee enemas, which may help cleanse the liver, tamarind or magnesium, which we just spoke of. So all of these things together have a very strong counteract with the levels. So lastly, I'm going to actually quote Edward Bernays. He said, "It's important that any effort to influence or affect the American public that's not in the public interest needs to be killed by the light of pitiless publicity and analysis." So we get to thank Edward Bernays for bringing fluoride into the American public. It was not brought to us by a famous doctor. It was not brought to us by a very famous dentist. It was brought to us by an advertising executive. The first madman. So I would caution our audience, our wellness audience here at Medhealthfit, to talk with their dentists, talk with their doctors, and to go online and read some websites like Mike Adams Health Ranger, Dr. Mercola. They have some beautiful articles on the use or the non-use of fluoride and how you can actually get rid of it in your diet, in your supplements, in your water supply, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope you enjoyed this little introduction to fluoride. This is our 2nd season now of Medhealthfit, and we appreciate you watching. I'm Eric Durack. Thanks.